You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those who I feel are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry. And this is all to provide you with education and inspiration. And if you missed last week's episode, it was with Chioma Adure-Wogu Johnson, the creative director of Dure Events. And today's special guest is Emily Reifel, the director of social events for CPS Events of the iconic venue, the Plaza in New York City. This is a wide-ranging interview in which we talk about how she came to have a passion for events, how she broke into the industry and especially to be at the Plaza, what her relationship is with clients and planners, what she looks for in creative partners whom she recommends, her view of the importance of entertainment for weddings, how she stays relevant, and more. So enjoy this conversation with Emily Reifel. Hey, Emily, I want to first thank Andre Mayer, the amazing photographer, for introducing us. For those listening, he was in episode 98. It was a wonderful interview. How do you know Andre? I'm assuming just from working with him at the Plaza.
Absolutely. I know Andre from working here, but he was also working for my current boss, Mike Warren, who's our director of catering here. They had worked together for years, and Mike made the introduction to Andre. And now we've become great colleagues, but good friends, and we love working together.
Yeah, every time I'm in New York, we get together for a meal. He's so just genuine. So anyway, when I started to research you, I heard that you are known as the Empress Em of Events at the Plaza in New York City. How'd you get that?
That's so funny. It is definitely one of my few nicknames.
Okay.
But what happened was that I was having dinner with a close friend of mine who was kind of another hospitality kind of nightlife friend. And he introduced me to Instagram, and he made my first, Instagram profile with me, like while we were sitting at dinner. And he just came up with Empress Em of Events at the Plaza.
Then stuck.
And I never changed it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, it's unique. All the people I've interviewed, I think you're the only one with that kind of a nickname. I think it's so cool.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
Yeah, but it's interesting, Emily. It seems to me that from what I understand about getting into the industry, that you really, truly worked your way up. From working at the front desk at the Waldorf Astoria, and then working as a hostess for a wedding there, and then eventually you got into social catering and events. But how did this start even before that? Like, I saw that you went to the University of Washington, you got a Bachelor of Arts in Dance and Communications. I mean, did you have any inkling that you would end up being in events when you were young, when you were in high school or college?
Wow, you really did your research. I'm so impressed.
Thank you.
I do remember when I was in college, and yes, I did go to the University of Washington in Seattle, which is where I grew up. I do remember in college thinking to myself, maybe events would be fun. And I always, was a super social person, like loved to go out and like fully enjoyed my college experience of living in a sorority for 4 years with 100 girls.
Right.
Which I give a lot of credit to because I learned so much about, how to build relationships and how to really talk to people, and, how to live with 100 people is something that's a whole adventure on its own. But within the sorority, we, hosted a lot of different philanthropy events and, different events for like Sorority Rush. And, I kind of learned from those experiences that this was something that I really enjoyed. I had no idea that I would end up in New York City, and I had no idea I would end up at the Plaza at that point in my life. But it was always something in the back of my mind that I thought I would enjoy.
But how did you end up in New York City? Because I know you started at the front desk at the Waldorf. How'd you get there? So
this is a little bit of a wild story. But as you mentioned, I do have a degree in dance, and my passion and love for dance was ultimately what led me to New York. When I was graduating from college, I had been accepted into the Alvin Ailey summer program.
Wow.
Meaning that I was going to be able to come, study at the Alvin Ailey School for a summer. I think it was like an 8-week program. And I came over with one of my friends, and it was a big adventure. And I danced at the school and was able to perform that summer in like a, final, performance that a lot of the students were able to be in. And I ultimately realized that I just loved New York City and decided that I wanted to officially move here. And I met someone, no joke, at a hot dog stand in Times Square.
Wow.
And he ended up inviting me to a party, and I went, and he said, I work at the Waldorf Astoria. And I said, that was the number one thing I wanted to see when I was in New York for the summer. And I had actually gone over to the Waldorf and walked in like at one point during the summer. And I thought, oh my gosh, this place is way too fancy for me. And I got nervous, and I turned around and I left.
That's funny.
So when I met Alejandro at the hot dog stand, I was like, wow, that's so weird that he works there. And I said, can you get me a job? And he said, do you have hotel experience? I said, no. And he said, well, do you have customer service experience? And I said, yes. I was working in retail at the time for the Seattle Mariners. That was like my college gig. And I ended up just really putting a lot of pressure on him to get me an interview. And he did. And then all of a sudden I had this job at the front desk at the Waldorf, and I couldn't believe it.
That's so funny. And then from there, is that when you a little later became a hostess for a wedding there?
So I was at the front desk. Then I also worked at the guest service hotline. I had then moved into a position which was sort of, I was one of the receptionists in the diamond reception area. So I got to work with like all the VIP guests. And that was where some of the brides, the grooms, the families that were involved in these weddings, they would check in. And so I got to know the two people that were handling the weddings at the Waldorf. And then they asked me to be a hostess at a wedding. And eventually I ended up becoming the receptionist in the sales office. And that was where I really learned that I thought it was going to be a good idea for me to go into sales at the Waldorf. But the social catering department needed an assistant. And everybody kept saying, Emily, you need to do that. And I said, okay. And I did it. And I was there working in social catering for like a little over 2 years. And then I had this, like, it sounds really funny, but I really had this vision and this moment where I thought, I think I need to be the girl that does all the weddings at the Plaza. And the Plaza was closed at the time, but it was going to reopen. And I just really tried to navigate and listen to find out who was going to open the Plaza and who did I need to talk to and how was I going to get in there. And eventually an introduction was made to Steve Rice, who was our GM that was opening the building for CPS Events. And I sat down and I interviewed him, and he said, well, I already know you're good at what you do. So what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be the social catering coordinator. And I want to work all the weddings. And then I want to learn how to sell, and I want to be promoted. And that's what I want to do. And he said, okay, write it down, send it to me. I said, what? Okay. I was like, did I just create my own job?
Jeez.
Like, I think I might have. And then I ended up here. The rest is history.
Well, how would you describe your role as director of social events? What would you say? You met someone at a party and they ask what you do.
I tell people that I'm in charge of all the social events happening at the Plaza, whether that's a wedding, a bar, bat mitzvah, a birthday party, an anniversary celebration, anything that's like a private social function is like under my watch. If it's a corporate event or a gala, a movie premiere, a Broadway opening, all of those events are handled by other people on my team. But I'm the wedding weekend girl.
The wedding. Well, now in that position, are you, when you meet the couple or the parents, however it goes, do you then hand them off to somebody, or do you have the opportunity to carry that relationship throughout? So
I feel very lucky, and it's a lot on my plate, but I do feel very lucky that I do get to meet them. And I tell them when I first meet them, I said, I'm here with you from this moment now until you guys, go to bed that night. And I think that, it's comforting for people to know that there is kind of one person that they are going to be talking to throughout this entire process. I tend to sort of say I'm like the captain of their like Plaza ship, and whatever they need while they're here, I'm always going to be a listening ear and a helping hand.
But what about when there's a planner involved? Like, how does the relationship work when there's a planner? Because I imagine that probably most of the weddings there do have planners.
I'd say it's a mix, because some people definitely want to have a planner and some people don't. If they don't have a planner, then I kind of, I tell them all the time, I'm not able to do as much as a planner can do, but I can, help you find like your perfect wedding team. And our team is very capable of, running your party. So, we can make it all happen here. But we obviously love the help of planners. And sometimes there's jobs that are just so big, like I wouldn't be able to, manage all of that just on my own. Yeah. So, we welcome everybody with open arms, but the way that it really works out the best is when the planners, they already have that relationship with me and also my team. And then they feel comfortable to have the client have the relationship with us as well. Because when we have the relationship with the client, like ultimately, things will never get lost in translation. And then the client feels super comfortable here because, they know that we're on their team and that we're just an extension of their planning team. And we're not just, people floating in the background. Like, we're really a part of their whole Plaza experience.
Well, what are the differences between how you work with a client when there is a planner versus when there isn't? I mean, I understand you just said that you tell them you're not able to go to the full extent as if they do have a planner with all that amount of detail. But what is your process, with clients in both cases?
I guess it kind of depends on each individual client. Some clients want to be a lot more hands-on and others are too busy and, they really want people to just like manage the whole thing and they want to show up and just have a good time. Ultimately, every client has to make decisions and they have to be, in the loop as far as budget and what things cost and all of that. But my process is I actually really prefer in-person meetings. So I'm really happy to like have people come to the Plaza, and I love to sit in the champagne bar and, make the whole experience of the planning process like really fun. And, do we sit in the palm court and discuss wedding details over tea, which is an experience on its own, but how fun to be able to do that where you can talk about your wedding and like experience the Plaza during the whole why experience it for just the day of the wedding? Like experience it for the full year.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I came in there with my fiance, but this is pre-COVID. And I mean, just exactly that, just to come in there and, have some tea. And it was just such an experience. I mean, it's so iconic, that venue, just being there. And I remember being there even in the early 80s and walking by, and it was always so elegant. So, you talk about wanting, really enjoying being in person with them. So how has COVID impacted that? I mean, obviously, we had shut down in the beginning from all of this. And since then, I mean, are you, here we are now at the almost October of 2021, and unexpectedly, of course, we all thought it was ending. And then there's the Delta variant. And, we're all kind of on the edge. What is going on? I mean, are you having many in-person meetings? How's that going for you?
COVID was obviously, really hard for everybody, but it was very tricky for us because the hotel closed for a year and a half. Unfortunately for me, I was put on furlough for a decent amount of that time.
Oh, geez.
So, it's really nice to be back, and people, because of my relationships with my clients, like people have been contacting me, really throughout this whole time period. And everyone was asking me, when's the Plaza going to reopen? When is it coming back? When is it coming back? When is it coming back? And the moment that we had some news that it was coming back, I cannot tell you how many people reached out. And, people love to say, oh, I want to come and I want to have champagne in the champagne bar. Are you there? I'm having a drink in the palm court. Like, can we come say hi? And, people want to be here and be in the elegance and the beauty of this like magical place.
I want to be sure you know the wonderful news of our latest show, Stop and Smell the Roses, with acclaimed lifestyle and event design expert Preston Bailey. Not only will he share the secrets, tools, and technologies behind his extraordinary ability to create a theatrical environment out of any space, you will also discover more about the man behind the magic. Preston will reveal how his focus on personal growth has been the root of his professional success, and you'll have the opportunity for him to answer your questions along the way. Plus, Preston will be inviting onto the show many of the star celebrities he has worked with in the past, so you don't want to miss a single episode. We also have another great show on the Wedding Biz Network, The Business of Being Creative, with host Sean Lowe. Since debuting, his show has really taken off, and he's continuing to bring you the creative business advice he's shared with accomplished industry notables. Be sure to take advantage of Sean's talkback opportunity by recording questions and comments from right there in each episode's show notes. So, if you are a creative who is turning your craft into a business or want to take it to another level, head to theweddingbiznetwork.com and take a listen to Stop and Smell the Roses with Preston Bailey and The Business of Being Creative with Sean Lowe. That's theweddingbiznetwork.com. What is it like for you, you're dealing with an enormous amount of social events, I imagine. Emily, how are you managing it all? For people listening who either want to be in your position or maybe they're in it, and they're feeling overwhelmed. Everyone I know is feeling overwhelmed, but in your particular position, I'm thinking, oh my God, you must handle so much at one time. I don't know how you keep up.
It's a really good question. To be honest, I definitely get up every day and I say, I'm really overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
I think that I'm at a place in my career where I feel very confident about, this team and, my role here. And so I feel like no matter what gets thrown at me, I know that I'm going to be able to handle whatever it is and figure it out and keep it moving. But, I tell people all the time, I really owe a lot to Preston Bailey because he is a true master of Zen. And he's is really truly an inspiration to me of really trying to find ways to just stay Zen through all of this. And I know it sounds so funny, but I have to carve out some point in my day to do whatever that is going to make me feel, that way. And I was actually talking to a friend about this last night, even just my walk to work. And it, might be 30 minutes and I just put my headphones on and I just have some music in my headphones that I love. And I just don't talk on my phone for those 30 minutes, while I walk to work. That helps set me up for the day.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Preston. Preston's been on the show a lot, and he's also, I'm producing a podcast for him called Stop and Smell the Roses.
He's the best.
Yeah, he's doing seasons, a few months at a time, and it's amazing knowing him in that way. But, I want to come back and, in terms of, I want to bring up how big, obviously, destination weddings are, and I wonder if you have to compete, the Plaza certainly in a sense is a destination, I would say. New York City can be considered that. And then in New York City, the Plaza would be one of the iconic locations. Is there some kind of a competitive issue that you've got when it comes to people considering going out of the area versus coming to New York to the Plaza?
100%. I tell people this all the time and a lot of people don't realize it, but we're competing with, like you said, we're competing with the whole world. It used to be the Plaza, the Pierre, and it is not that anymore. It's the Plaza, it's the Breakers, it's Lake Como, it's Paris. It's other places in Italy. People pre-COVID were doing weddings all over the place. I do think now people are looking to stay home and do something elegant, close by because nobody, feels confident with the travel restrictions the way that they are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And everybody still wants to celebrate. So I think, moving forward, I do think people will continue to do things closer to home, which is nice. But it is really fun when people do pick the Plaza as a destination and they're coming in from, somewhere else. We get a lot of calls from the UK for whatever reason, London, the Londoners love New York City, I guess. So it is fun when people are coming from other places to come to New York City and really really experience this.
Yeah, yeah. I also believe that you have exclusive vendors or creative partners, as Colin Cowie calls them, and I'm doing that too. And assuming that you do, I believe I read somewhere that you suggest clients meet with them before putting down a deposit for the venue. That's so interesting. Is that am I accurate?
We do have people, that we strongly recommend. I'm a big proponent of really having people meet with people that fit their aesthetic and personality. So I love to play matchmaker. It's one of my favorite parts of this job, to be totally honest. But no, I think, locking in a date and a place is definitely what you should do first, especially in this climate where dates are very limited and the good dates are extremely limited. But sometimes I do believe that if you have a client meet with somebody that you have a relationship with and you work with all the time, they can solidify in that client's mind that making a decision to come to the Plaza is the right decision. They can really help you sell and say, you know what, we work there all the time. We know the team there, and they just make them feel super comfortable and, can't hurt. Definitely can't hurt.
Well, when you do recommend a creative partner, what are the qualities that, get them to that point where you are comfortable recommending them?
That's a really good question. A lot of it just has to do with how they kind of come in and play in our house. Are they team players with my team, and are they're respectful of this beautiful landmark property, doing parties in a building that's been open since 1907. There's there's certain restrictions that are in place that aren't in place at other venues. I mean, the terrace room, which is one of the most beautiful places to have a ceremony, unfortunately, it's not ADA accessible because this is a landmark space. And so, getting creative about how to make people feel comfortable in a space like that, is important. So you want to work with people that or have got your back and play really on your team and can also deliver really superstar quality work. They don't cut corners. I mean, we want this place to continue to be the best place in the world to have a wedding, because that's what the expectation is.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's this whole vibe of just ultra luxe, and so, I mean, I am in music and entertainment, and I think, coming to the Plaza, there is a different perspective that the entire team has to understand walking in the door, so, also there was some kind of an interview you did where at the time you said you were most excited about how people look at their entertainment, and it's not just for example, when it comes to bands, it's not just a band, but there's also a show element. Do you still feel that way? What are some examples of that?
I totally do. And I actually feel I feel like that more so now. I think people are really, interested in showcasing some kind of entertainment, and they're getting really excited by even having special, headliner entertainment, or, maybe some kind of performers that are well known. I think it's really fun to do a surprise. So having kind of a surprise entertainment element.
Like what? What are you thinking of in particular? Or what have you experienced?
We had, it was really fun. My first same-sex marriage at the Plaza was one of my favorites that I've done here in my time here. But the couple, they were so cute. Two guys, they were from Florida, so it was a destination wedding. They at the time obviously couldn't be married in Florida, but they could be married in New York. So that was a very, just cool historic thing to be a part of. But they really loved the song "I Love You Always and Forever" that Donna Lewis sang. And so we had everybody come into the ballroom, and we had this beautiful, all white and ivory, gorgeous dinner setting set up on one side of the ballroom. And we had this big giant hedge that divided the ballroom in half. And on the other side of the hedge, we surprised all the guests. And after dinner, they walked through the hedge. And on the other side, we had recreated Central Park.
Oh, geez.
And everybody was like, wait, where are we? What's going on? There was fake grass on the ground and trees and a gazebo. It's so beautiful. And then all of a sudden, as soon as everybody got in, we had like a sax player kind of like guide all of the guests to the other side, like you would hear in the park, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere on the main stage, the curtains opened and there was Donna Lewis, and she sang their first dance.
Wow.
And it was so
that's crazy,
cool and fun. And everybody loved it. Everybody was surprised.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, being in the business, I'm into that too. I'm into creating some kind of surprise. And, and people on the show, I mean, a lot of people, David Duterte, a lot of people have talked about how every, 20 minutes or so that there really should be something, some kind of surprise, something that happens. I mean, it could be as simple as like Preston, like a lot of people do, the light changes on the ceiling or there's, like you say, there's some kind of entertainment or maybe there's an unexpected dish that comes out and is served with a big, showy moment. I mean, there should be something throughout that happens. So, also, you also mentioned, I think this was in an interview too, that how people need to have a lot of fun, right? And even though you're at this you have this elegant setting, that it doesn't have to be pure elegance. And I'd love to know more about what you meant by that.
Yeah, I'm a huge energy person, and anyone that knows me knows that, obviously I was a dancer my whole life, and I love to dance. So if you can create the most magical dance party at the Plaza, that's a home run, One of our creative partners, everybody knows they're exclusive here, is Bentley Meeker Lighting and Staging. So the lighting is a huge part of that. Love Bentley.
He was on the show. Bentley is a genius. Yeah.
He is a genius. We're super close friends. He's my other Zen master in my life. We actually do a lot of yoga together. But even something, one of my favorite memories here was we did this super cool end of the night after party with a really fun client who, again, was also not from New York, actually. They brought a lot of people here with a pretty international crowd, but we did this fun after party, and we had these amazing laser lights that came on. Yep. And we surprised that group with late night, this 80s band called Jesse's Girl. Uh-huh. And everybody went wild. And this client had been a little nervous, I don't know about the Plaza. Is it too old school? Is it too stuffy? We're a fun crowd. We go to Burning Man, and we switched it up. And, we got this, amazing lighting and this incredible, fun, funky 80s band that just switched the vibes so fast, and everybody loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea. I love that. So, just a couple more questions. What's the hardest part of what you do in your position? What do you still have to really struggle with?
I think it's not any secret to anyone. I think everybody who knows me knows I want to be as responsive as I can to all the clients, and juggling all of that is really hard. It's really hard, and you can't do it without really good support. But that's I think what really is the hardest part. How do you get through your day when you have so many meetings, and then the phone's ringing and the text messages are coming in?
Right.
My team needs information from me, and I'm in a tasting, and it's a lot.
Well, and again, I think I know right now everyone I know is struggling with the exact same thing. I mean, part of it is obviously because with COVID, people rescheduled their weddings, and we're all doubling up, and it's so much, but I think we got to know that we all are dealing with it. And, we just got to, like you say, I love the idea earlier, how you said you start your day with, it's almost like a meditative walk that you do,
100%.
And I meditate. I do transcendental meditation in the morning. I also work out, which helps me just get that body buzz and sets me up for the day. Yeah, I think that's the only thing we can do, is just a day at a time, and to set the day up as best as we can so that we're healthy and able to face it,
It's so true. And I like a routine. It's funny because I actually just finally on Saturday, I finally went back to ballet class, and I'm very lucky. Wow. There's a ballet class right here, super close to the Plaza. But that's to set me up for an event day. My best and favorite way to do it is to get up, go to class in the morning. It almost feels like you're going to company class before a performance. And that's really my favorite way to warm up. And I feel super inspired. And as soon as that class is over, I walk back to the Plaza, and then it's okay, it's time for the show.
Right.
And you're ready, you're centered, you're grounded, you've sweat a little bit, and it's time to go. It's showtime.
Yeah, it is. So lastly, Emily, I'm also wondering, in today's world, I mean, there's just constant changing trends, and buying habits are shifting, especially through the experience of COVID. How do you stay relevant, with all of this? I mean, how do you kind of view that?
That's also a really good question. This is going to sound a little like funny, but I really strongly believe in it. I'm a super social person, and I love to like, be out and about. And I think that going to parties and going to new restaurants and, I obviously see and attend like a lot of dance, and, I want to be inspired by art, and finding the time to go out and travel and try new things and meet new people and experience, how are people celebrating? How are people partying? What are the kids doing these days is really important. Because I find that like a lot of times I'll say, oh, have you been to this place, or have you heard of this? And you can connect with a client purely based on an experience that you may have had at like a really cool, hot new restaurant, So I think that really helps to stay relevant in a place, that a lot of people think is, in the back of their mind, old.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It didn't, even though I asked the question, I wasn't thinking of the kind of that dichotomy of the way people view this, again, iconic, been there forever venue with today and what's edgy and current, and combining all of that. I think that's great. So before we go, what are you excited about right now? What are you most excited about?
Ooh, I'm excited to dive into October. It's the busiest month. It's definitely, I think everybody will agree, it's the hottest month to get married in New York City. And I think it's been that way for a while, but this year, forget about it. So if I can survive October 2021, oh man, I feel like I could do anything.
Yeah, I'm in the DC area. So, I mean, I'm sure for both of us that the weather is stunning, and especially in Maryland, there's a changing of the colors of the leaves. And it's like I can breathe. I mean, I've got work in November, December, and so on and so forth, but I feel like I can finally really breathe November 1st.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been a pleasure getting to know you like this. I really appreciate you coming on the show. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad we got to be connected, and, I'm happy to join anytime. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Emily Reifel. Be sure to check out the website of cpsevents.com. And on Instagram, you can find them at Plaza Parties. And you could get all of this in the show notes at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you could share this with some friends or colleagues who you feel would benefit from it, we would really appreciate it. And also, if you can give a top rating and a great review wherever you get your podcast from, that would also be helpful. I want to mention next week's guest, and that's going to be a revisit of my interview with Eddie Zaratsian, the extremely popular designer and planner out of Los Angeles. In the meantime, we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.